Hey guys, and welcome! Today we got the patch notes for update 5.3 of Battlefield 2042, and this comes with some very interesting and unexpected changes and improvements, alongside several tweaks and bug fixes. As usual, I will talk about the most important points here on this video, and if you want to read through the full patch notes, you can find a link to them in the description below. The update goes live on Tuesday, August 29th, alongside the Battlefield Redux event, and if you haven't heard of Redux yet, just check out the video in the info box for everything you need to know. But now let's have a look at the actual patch notes, starting with important changes to the vehicle count in Conquest. Cause now that the rework of all launch maps is done, the team wants to focus on how vehicles interact with these new versions of the maps and also with their newly designed locations. So following the week after update 5.3, there will be a server-sided change done that tweaks the vehicle counts for Conquest on all 2042 maps, the reworked ones and also the Seasons maps. Improvements for the Portal era maps might be done at a later time based on player feedback, but in this update it only affects the 2042 maps. Now, changes and tweaks are both terms that can mean a lot and don't give away what actually happens, so let's take a look at two examples they added to the patch notes, which is the Season 1 map Exposure and the reworked launch map Discarded. On Exposure, the focus will be shifted towards air vehicle gameplay, which means that in Conquest 128, armored transport vehicles like the MAV are not available at all anymore, while the amount of attack helis and jets is increased from 1 to 3 and from 1 to 2 respectively. In addition, civilian vehicles and utility are reduced by half. For the 64-player version of the mode, this is pretty similar, only that in this case light transport is reduced and light armor increased, alongside the higher amount of attack helis and jets. Civilian vehicles won't be available at all on this version after the update. On Discarded, on the other hand, the changes will be a bit more balanced, even though the focus is slightly shifted towards more combat between heavy ground vehicles and infantry. So in Conquest 128, the amount of armored transport, heavy armor and jets will be increased by 1 for each category, and light transport, light armor, utility and civilian vehicles will be reduced. In the 64-player version, it's again pretty similar, and the amount of armored transport and heavy armor is increased as well, but the jets and gunships are completely removed. The rest of the vehicle distribution stays the same, and these kinds of tweaks will also be done to all other 2042 maps, only that we don't have the exact numbers yet. Definitely interesting to see how these changes will affect the flow of the maps, and there might be more tweaks done in the future based on our feedback. In addition to this, there will also be several changes made to the vehicles themselves and to their weapons and damage output. First, there is the attack helicopter, and according to the patch notes, the aircraft is not performing as well as intended, especially not in comparison to the Nightbird and stealth helis. So what will change is that the attack heli takes 25% less damage from the 30mm cannons of the Wildcat and from the flag weapons. In addition, the firepower of the attack heli was tweaked, which means the amount of available TOW missiles was increased by 1, and the rate of fire of the gunner went up from 200 to 600, but in return, the blast damage of the gunner's seat was lowered from 20 to 18, the starting damage from 40 to 25, the gunner's speed was reduced from 800 to 350, and the overheating of the weapon was also adjusted, but there are no details for it, so I assume it overheats faster now. Plus, the front gunner's camera position was improved, which means it has a wider view now and allows players to move the gun by more degrees. And thermal optics are added to the attack helis as well, but only for the gunner seat, similar to most other vehicles. Besides this, there were also changes made to the aircrafts in general, and the first one is that anti-vehicle missiles will primarily deal damage through their blast now, which makes it vital to aim for direct hits for full damage output. And the second change was made to the controls of air vehicles, and here the sensitivity of all helicopters was slightly lowered to allow for easier aiming and better adjustments. For the attack helis, the third-person camera position was adjusted to keep the vehicle more centered and aligned to the crosshair, the drag forces were updated for better hover control, and the Super Hokum and Apache were made more similar when it comes to their maneuverability. Improvements were also made to the Nightbird's first-person perspective crosshair position, the 0 point of the anti-vehicle rocket pods of attack helicopters and jets was adjusted, and specifically for the jets, the fire rate of these rocket pods was lowered from 300 to 240. I'm not much of an aircraft player, but these control improvements sound pretty good so far. And these were only the changes to aircrafts. Now let's have a look at the tweaks made to ground vehicles, but that's not as many. In the latest podcast episode, the devs had already announced that there will be improvements made to the hovercraft and its drift, so that's what's coming. Plus, the vehicle will accelerate and stop faster than before and rotate easier, especially from a standstill position. In addition, the 20mm flag cannon will be re-enabled for the LATV and the hovercraft, but with a little change, cause its blast damage against infantry was completely removed. This was made to reduce the explosive spam coming from this weapon and to make it less powerful. And if you've ever played an intense round of Rush or Breakthrough, you know that these things were really annoying. Besides these many changes to vehicles and their presence on the battlefield, there were also a few tweaks made to specialists and gadgets, and these mainly affect the engineer class, which was also announced in the podcast already. So for Crawford and his mounted Vulcan, the damage per bullet was increased from 10 to 12, and also its overall accuracy, but only when firing for a short period of time. When you fire for longer, the accuracy will still be the same it was before. When it comes to the gadgets, the projectile speed of the RPG and recoilless M5 has been reduced by 17%, and the weapon sway of the recoilless M5 while aiming down sights was increased. According to the devs, this was made because the rocket launchers were primarily used for anti-infantry combat and for sniping vehicles with ease at range, so they wanted to give both of these gadgets a bit more skill, especially at long distance. Not too sure about this change, to be honest, because I found these launchers were at a pretty good spot, but let's see how it plays. Additionally, the health of the EOD bot was reduced from 400 to 300, and there was an impulse modification done so that the EOD doesn't get pushed around when shot with bullets. And we're still not done yet, because there were also a few fixes made to weapons, but here I only picked 3 that might be interesting for you. The first one is a fix for an issue where the incorrect rate of fire was applied on the extended magazine of the AC-9 and on the subsonic magazines of the AM-40. The second fix is for a missing recoil penalty when an underbarrel launcher was equipped, and the third one fixed a bug where 4x and higher scopes did not glint on the XM8, Type 88 and RPK. So if you've used these attachments in your setups, you might feel a bit of a difference now, especially for the issue where the recoil penalty was missing. And last but not least, we have another new feature that will be added with the update, but I've pushed it all the way to the end of this video because I already mentioned it several times before, and that's the new Codex. It will be available through the main menu and will bring all of the pieces of the lore together in one place, so you can easily look them up and read through them. Right now, the lore of 2042 is pretty spread out and there are bits and pieces everywhere in the game and also outside of it, and the Codex is supposed to change this. It will include the lore for factions, maps, specialists, themed events, narrative hunts and so on, and makes it easily accessible. With update 5.3, the Codex will include all story elements up to Season 4, and with the start of Season 6, the lore of the events after Season 4 will follow. In addition to all of these changes and new features, there were also several minor bug fixes made, but like I said, if you want to read through all of them as well, you can find the link to the full notes in the description below. And that's it for today. Very extensive patch notes again, and definitely a lot of interesting stuff. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like or a comment below and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Until then, thanks for watching, and thanks to my members for the additional support. I'm the Catwoman and you are awesome.